to have Mr. Randy Lim, the Group Creative Director of Hoco Agency, to be with us. So we have a creative expert who is here to talk to us about creativity, to answer a few questions. So give Randy the warmest welcome, guys. Have a seat. Randy, let's start with a very quick introduction of yourself, because the team is supposed to be interviewing you. There's no show. So why not you give us a very quick introduction of who you are, what Hoco Agency is, and then we get on to the conversation.
Okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. So my name is Randy. I'm currently the Group Creative Director for Hoco Agency. I'm also one of the founding partners for Hoco. You guys heard of Hoco before? Yeah? Okay. So I started my sort of journey in creative arts about 12 years ago when I was in Canada. I started a small media production company, and back then I was doing a lot of work with nightclubs and festivals. So that's where I got my first creative legs in. And then slowly after that, I ventured into other aspects of creativity before coming to Brunei about 10 years ago to start Hoco. And now we are a group of companies. So over the last 2 years, we had to pivot a little bit when COVID hit. As a marketing agency, we got hit quite hard because of the pandemic. Everyone, you guys all know how COVID was like, right? When the lockdowns were happening. You can't do business, and businesses were trying to cut their costs. No one's really doing marketing. So in that period of time, we diversified a little bit, pivoted, and we started a esports organization that's currently operating in 3 countries, Brunei, Thailand, Malaysia. And we also started a sort of a data consultancy company called Alfred. So that's where we're at today. My role in the group primarily right now is I focus more on the esports organization. So I travel a lot to Thailand, to Malaysia to help the teams, and to help brand and market them as well. Now, no longer from an agency side of things, now I'm coming from a brand side of things. And my partners are the ones who manage more of day-to-day in Brunei for the agency. Yeah, but that's just me in a short nutshell.
Guys, every week we have someone really, really outstanding, really, really important. Today is no different, right? We have Hoco Agency is, right now the leading advertising, or as we call it, the branding agency in Brunei. Yeah, and we're talking to the group creative director on the subject of creativity, which is really fitting. The concept, the word creativity is such a broad word. It encompasses so many different aspects. For yourself, when I coin the word creativity, what goes through your mind?
So I think when people say creativity, they always think, oh, you must be good with a pen or pencil, good at painting, good at taking photos. But I think when you were presenting just now, really nailed the point home that creativity is all about doing things differently. So if you guys are familiar with Apple, at one point they had a slogan which is think different. I think you always think of Apple as a creative company, right? But they produce phones. They're not really an agency. They're not a design firm. They make products. But back then, when they were making waves, it was always because they were trying to change the status quo. So Thai ads, why they appear to be so creative is because of the twist, the plot twist, because things the storyline kind of evolved and it took you on a different turn, and you're surprised by the connection that was made at the end. So I feel like creativity is being able to solve these problems in a very different way, and that makes you stand out. So that's the difference between you say, oh, this is a really creative solution or creative designs, because you've never seen it before. Right? So creativity comes from all of that, I think. A lot of trial and error, not being afraid to make these mistakes, and really coming up with something that no one has done before, or no one has seen before. So for me, I think creativity is all about being daring enough to sort of like challenge what you're used to?
I want to give you a bit of context here on why we are using this entire session to talk about creativity. The context is this whole module this month at UNISA is on entrepreneurship, right? So we go through 4 weeks. The first week was on leadership. Second week was on business thinking slash, how to be an entrepreneur. The third week was on sales and customer service. So today we are talking about creativity in the context of a business, in how, entrepreneurs can approach this concept of creativity and apply to their own business, which is where you come in, because half of you, yes, you are the artist, the creative guy, but the other half, you are also the business person. And you mentioned something so important just now. It is, in the business context, it's about solving a problem, right? So we're going to shun everything else and focus on the conversation on business. One of my biggest obstacle when it comes to, I used to be in very similar line. I was in communication. I help conceptualize advertisement, corporate statements, so on and so forth. And my biggest frustration with so-called the creative people, the graphic designers, is that they have seemingly they are very creative, but they have no idea how to operate in the real world. Let's assume that even though they are not graphic designer, right? Let's assume they are, right? When graphic designer come into a design agency, helping to create a solution through advertisement for your client, what is the biggest mistake that they normally make?
new ideas. We always talk about like inspiration, what inspires you, right? Whether it's talking to someone that's watching a podcast, it's all this repetitive exposure to a different, unfamiliar environment that I feel is going to help you become a more creative person. So if you want to harness creativity, I think my single best advice is to put yourself into an uncomfortable position. Do something that you've never done before, travel, if you can, right? And then widen your perspective on things. Widen your worldview on things. And then you're going to be able to see things from a different angle. You're going to come up with different ideas. Like just being here today, and then, you know, listening to Shaun's presentation and seeing that guy with the garden on top of the car, that already gives you a great idea about, you know, how you can do things differently. But you have to be here. You have to pay attention. You have to put yourself in this environment before you have this idea planted in your head. And then you can build off of it. Yeah.
Randy, just now as Abby asked a question, I was, you know, my heart was beating a bit fast because I was so glad that the question was not directed at me, but to you. But having heard what you've just said, right? Here is my improv thoughts. Okay, allow me to hijack it a little bit.
Oh, please.
But I thought that it's important. Yeah. Just now, one of my slides, I say that. So before you came, I was trying to make a case that the world, and especially this generation, have become a lot less creative because of the input that they get are very homogeneous. We are becoming very, very similar in terms of, you know, our sensories, our radar, right? Our library is Google, right? But let's say if I give you a creative brief and all of you go to Google and you get, and if you're as hardworking as I am, you just go through the first 5 lists on page 1, right? We all are going to get exactly the same answer, right? So if I was a creative director, I would never allow my staff to, I would ask them to Google, yes, no doubt. But I would say, hey, don't be lazy, right? Take a step 2-3 times further, right? So my answer to your question is very simple, right? What are the obvious and what are the less obvious, right? Do both, not either or, both. You need to have the awareness of what your competitors may be doing, obvious. The less obvious is, for example, right? If you follow, again, Faisal is probably the only one that came to almost all the classes. When we teach public speaking, right? I don't invite, well, I invited Jenny, which is obvious, but I also invited Safwan, who is a stage performing artist, right? Who give talk as an who don't give public speaking, but he is a performer, stage performer for Relentless, right? So if you are able to perform on stage, you are able to, you know, to recite any public speaking needed. You know, it's not just being able to talk, but how to project your voice, how to get yourself into another personality, so on and so forth, right? So, you know, you go to extreme in finding solutions. So if you want to learn customer service, the best place to learn is not another shop, not even Disney, right? You go to the world's best hospital and look at how the nurses are taking care of the patients, right? I teach leadership by teaching people to emulate from the dog whisperers, Caesar Milan, right? Because you know, it has got everything to do with leading with your primal instinct, how you position yourself, how you manage your energy. So, yeah, don't do the obvious. Go to the extreme and find the best source possible. So, yeah, just adding on a little bit.
I agree. Those are very, very good points.
Any more questions? We have another 15 more minutes. Actually, we have another 5 minutes for our wrapping up our conversation because we're going to give out the cert. What is your tips to people wanting to be slightly more creative?
Tips on how to be or wanting to be more creative.
How can we be more like you, Randy?
I wouldn't consider myself the most creative person in the world. I mean, it's hard to objectify that. I guess tips.
What are your daily disciplines? Sometimes you don't know until you look back, hey, these are the things that I've always been doing. It's like a second nature already.
So being curious, right? Having a curious mind is very important. Always wanting to, in our agency, the most important question that we hold, like as like an ethos, is the word why. Right? It's always
so annoying.
It's if you have kids, it's very annoying. Right? It's like why? But you see, kids are naturally very curious, and we always think of kids, like Lego when they play as like those are the building blocks for them when it comes to creativity, and it's because they're so inquisitive. They want to learn about this world that they're so new to, so they ask a lot of these why questions. And I guess when we get older, we get tired of learning and studying, we see the same thing over again, and we get exhausted of our day-to-day lives, we start asking these why questions. It's like, just do this. Okay. Instead of like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do it this way? Right? So when you keep asking that question, you eventually be able to look at it from a different perspective. And this is how we problem solve, right? It's like, okay, why do you have this problem? Why does this person feel this way? Why are they talking like this? I think psychologists use that a lot when they're trying to deduce like issues that you have. So that why question, I think, that curious mind, yeah, is what I try to remind myself from time to time, every day to do. Because sometimes I get lazy too, I forget. You see something, you're like, okay, yeah, it is the way it is, right? But when you start asking that question, start asking that why, you start being annoying to your friends and to yourself, I think you will be a more interesting and creative.
So creative people are often more annoying.
Oh man, they're annoying and like odd bunch.
We were supposed to ask him a question, right? How many percent of your staff are left-handed? Graphic designers especially. Yeah.
I think at one point, almost half of them.
Half?
Yeah. I was surprised as well that there are actually a lot of graphic designers out there that because left-handed people are more creative, is it?
Well, I have a thesis that because they are minority, and when you need to survive, right, being a minority, because the world is designed for right-handed people, right? Yeah, so naturally you are more resilient, and obviously a left-hander uses the right side of the brain, which is supposed to be more lateral. It's 101 reason why.
I'm very right-handed.
I'm right-handed as well. I think it would be so cool to be left-handed, just to say that, hey, I'm a creative. I'm naturally creative. Okay, I promise, final last question, right? You're a boss, you recruit people, obviously you recruit creative people, but let's zoom out a little bit, right? Any people that graduate and come knocking at a door and say, hey, can I have a job? Two questions within it, right? Number one is, what kind of candidates in the past have impressed you the most, right? Number two is, what do you look out for in people wanting a job from you?
Okay.
Is there any example of people, or you can do the opposite, right? Who pisses you the most off, right? That you write them off right away. Right?
My business partners.
Sorry?
My business partners.
Well,
always on my edge. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in terms of giving them a job, though.
Okay.
Yeah, as an employer.
Well, for me, I think
I pretend not to hear it for Josh.
it's okay. He knows. He knows 100%. He'll say the same thing about me. Well, I think we share the same. Like me and him, we share the same sentiments when it comes to hiring. Everyone nowadays, when they're applying for a job, has a degree, a master's, a double degree. So I think the way to stand out is, especially in an interview when you don't really have a chance to build that relationship with someone, is to ask a lot of questions, right?
So meaning if that person asks you a question, it's actually a plus.
It's a plus, yeah. I think it's very good that you talk, that you can ask questions.
When was the last time you ever have any interviewee asking you any question?
Very rare, actually, that's why. You don't see that a lot.
Yeah, but if I was them, I would think that it's a sign of being polite. If I'm asking question, it's a bit rude, right, in our culture?
I think we should change that. I think you need to project a bit of confidence in your skill, in yourself. I think employers are looking, good employers anyways, are looking for people to join the team that can help them change things, right? We have a saying in our agency where I'm not going to hire somebody who is not better than me. Because if I'm going to hire you and you are not better than me, then I might as well just do it myself. We're always going to try and hire people who are younger, who are better, who are faster, who think better, who are more
Fresher
creative,
ideas, right?
Fresher ideas, right? And what we can do is we can maybe give them that structure and framework to sort of help us and the organization succeed. But you don't want to run a company where you're just hiring people who are slower than you, right? You want people to be faster than you, to be more energetic. You want your juniors to come and work overnight. Not encouraging it. Right? Don't report me to the labor board or anything. But come with all these ideas and say, hey, I have all of these things. Can you meet up with me? Can you approve these things? Can you give me? Is this a good idea?
So the energy is important.
Energy, passion, and the willingness, or the want to always be better, to always ask these questions. If you look at like the culture and all these tech companies in the US, Australia, UK that we always talk about, Facebook and like Google and all that, you look at like the type of people that they employ, it's always people like this, the people who talk a lot, they ask a lot of questions, they're nice about it, so don't ask like in a demeaning or confrontational way, but ask because you're curious, and always want to be better. Not step on your colleagues' toes and play politics, but you want to be a better person.
While we are on this point, right, let me help to qualify a little bit, right? Ask questions that you cannot find on Google about the company, because if you ask questions that you can already find on Google about the company, I mean, if you are unlucky and you have me, I would write you off because it tells me that you're not doing your homework, right?
There's a website for that. It's called googlethatforyou.com.
Exactly. Don't make that mistake, right? I don't think Randy means that kind of question, right? As to what kind of question, you guys have to figure it out. You're not supposed to get all the answers here.
Yeah. The energy is very important.
The energy is crucial.
Energy is very important, yeah. And then just showing a general interest for the job, right? Passion. I think for us, some of my like favorite people to work with are the ones that always come back with ideas, always want to do more.
And they don't accept.
And yeah, so in our agency, we have 3 core brand values that will make everyone subscribe to. The first is always being bold, which is you always have to try new things. The second is empathy, because we are in the art of communication, right? Our job is communication. We always have to try and put ourselves into someone else's shoes. And then the last is to never settle. So whatever you do, when you look back at your work, always think about, could I have done it better? Can we do it better the next time, right?
Okay, if no one have any question, no one is bold enough, we will end the session. This is the very last session. On behalf of myself and PETRONAS, would like to thank you for your precious time. We know how busy you are, and your commitment. I mean, you're managing 3 different countries. Your commitment to developing the youth and showing that hey, they're better than us in the future. I think it's what we are here for. I'd like to pass you a certificate of appreciation. Let's give it up to Randy.